Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes ball. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal! Following you in all its magnificence.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Wolves Fancast, part of the 90min Football Network. Look, life's good as a Wolves fan at the moment, and joining me to talk about yesterday's rainy win, we've got Jefoe.
Oh yeah, how's it going?
Good, and we've got a return to a Fancast favourite. I'd say eclipsing Pedro Neto yesterday. We've got Matt Guy.
What incredible! What an entrance! No one talks as nicely about me like that.
I was going to say, I like how I've always described it. It's like I've not spoken to you in a couple of months. I literally saw you yesterday. But yeah, I feel like we needed. I'm just sort of ashamed we didn't do like a full show entrance. You know, like dimmed everything around us.
Oh no, I don't have enough of the showbiz Hollywood pizzazz for that. To be fair,
no, I was
understated is my bag.
Yeah, I was going to say I feel it wouldn't quite match the personality to kind of go for that quite chauvinisticness. When I have a couple of episodes away from the Fancast at some point, I'm full on going for a big entrance again. I've decided.
Oh really?
Yeah. I feel like my ego could, you know.
Can we? Does the Fancast coffers have enough for some like fireworks or anything like that?
I reckon so. We could, you know,
some pyro.
Yeah, like I reckon I could get away with a flare in the house. Or we wait until like the summer. Daylight savings coming up, so I could just record an episode outside.
Happy days.
That works as well. But let's get talking about yesterday's win against Leicester. First and foremost, have we all dried off from the game?
It was horrendous, wasn't it, Christ? I mean, there's talk of people in the ground Hughes being given 50 loyalty points just for pursuing it. I've never seen torrential rain like it. It was Braga levels of rain. It was absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, there was a fear that I was a little bit worried it might get called off about 20 minutes before kickoff, and he just started lashing it down. And I just thought, okay, here we go. This is it. But luckily, yeah, it settled down a little bit. Yeah,
I was going to say, fortunately, not when when you look at the Leeds Man U game, that the second half of that, like the pitch was waterlogged. Like you could see every time the ball landed and the splashes and everything. But yeah, sort of. I don't know. I think the weather potentially had a bit of an impact on the game, which we'll kind of go into a bit, because I think overriding consensus, it was a win. It was a solid win, but maybe not the best performance possible. But, you know, although we had rain, we had a little bit of sunshine in terms of the squad that I think Bruno had alluded to before kickoff, saying, you know, everyone's fit now. I think he even sort of earmarked, he said Zhao's fit. Neto's fit, Johnny's fit, everyone's kind of available at this point, which I think before kickoff everyone kind of assumed that meant that Moutinho was starting. I wasn't necessarily expecting Neto to be on the bench, but it was definitely pleasing to see after such a long return, wasn't it, Matt?
It was. It's one of those morale boosting kind of news announcements, really. You know, in the pub, as soon as the clock strikes half past, everybody's buzzing and looking at the the squad list and thinking Neto's on it. It just gives everybody a bit of a lift, which is exactly what you want going into what is essentially a crunch game. Is of huge importance, this game. But you've only got to look at that subs bench now to what a difference kind of 2-3 weeks makes, because out of nowhere we've got this stacked subs bench, which is exactly what you want, bleeding in a little bit of youth as well. And all of a sudden, from an attacking point of view, we've got an abundance of options, which is what any manager wants, really.
Yeah, I think Jefoe, I think that the bench is, I was going to say, ironically, the more interesting place to start from the lineup
Yeah, I
itself.
think it was interesting. Obviously, seeing Neto back's incredible. I just, like you say, it lifts everyone. But the fact that we've now got a bench which cannot include Willy Bolly and Mosquera,
Mm.
who say Willy Bolly was such an important player during our first few years back. It's incredible to see where we've come, and actually to say Bruno's been a bit shrewd, because obviously we were talking about previously about transfer windows and not doing business. Yeah, in fact, it looks like we don't need anyone now.
Yeah,
because he must have known that all these players were coming back, and now we look like we're in a great position going into the tail end of the season.
Yeah, I remember the heady days of October when we're fielding like a subbench of 7-8 players, and 2 of them were goalkeepers. And yet you look at it now, where to be fair, you've still got Tossi and you've still got Kunzel as 2 youth players, but that's what a subbench is sort of supposed to be. It's supposed to kind of sometimes comprise a few younger players, isn't it? But you say it's the attacking options that in fact, you've got Neto, Trincao, and Wang who can play in multiple positions, and Silva as well. All having those opportunities off the bench, and like say 3 months ago, whatever, just before Christmas, it was like, well, we only know 3 players. We know which 3 players are going to come on, unless there's an injury. Whereas now there's almost a level of uncertainty enough at the second half. I'm fast tracking through like 60 minutes of football here. But the impact our subs had, which they've not always had this season. But I was going to say, in terms of the start of the game, yet again, Wolves got off to a bit of a flyer in terms of scoring pretty quickly. Neves on the score sheet in only sort of the 9th, 10th minute, I think it was. Thoughts on the goal, Jefoe?
He took it really well, and the main thing I really liked about it is the way that we attacked it and the build-up, because we moved the ball around well, and it's something that we haven't done. Is we haven't seen a lot of it going into Jimenez and then him laying off for shots or laying off for chances, and having that now happening, and that goal, he took it fantastically well, Neves. And just to see Neves and Moutinho getting in and around the edge of the box again for shots is fantastic. So we missed that the last couple of games.
Yeah, I think my kind of immediate note when I saw the goal was players getting forward, and whether it's Donk or Neves or Moutinho, just having that extra player who's committing. But Matt, in terms of Jimenez's involvement in the goal, I mean, his performance overall was a little bit meh, but actually for a goal, he did the right thing at the right moment, where he's not always been back this season.
No, he could have been forgiven for, snatching a shot away, trying to turn and snatch a shot, because he's a player that desperately needs a run of a few goals in a few games. But actually, to have the selflessness to lay that ball off is exactly what was needed, and it gave us a goal. I think the importance that hopefully came as a tactical decision is, Leicester are in terrible form, and you attack a team that's in terrible form in wet, horrible, windy conditions, and that's exactly what we did. The difficulty became later on in the game where, for some bizarre reason, we gave away possession like men possessed, which we'll get on to, I'm sure. The goal itself, though, it's just another clinical strike. The second it went in, I just text my mate, he only scores worldies, because that's exactly like, he's just he's an artist on the pitch, and I've never been so in love with another man as much as I am with Ruben Neves.
I was going to say, there are a couple of things I wanted to point out. We almost, you almost forget in a way how good that strike is, considering the whether as we get Wednesday. My things went funny there. Sorry, guys. In terms of kind of just keeping it low and hard, and particularly, I think he had a really great chance against Leicester in the opening game of the season, which I think produced a fine save from Schmeichel. So see him score, fantastic. Now, I'm gonna slate the other 2 goal scorers in this game, and I'm gonna do it now. Just instead of later. Yeah, I'm gonna. I look. No one is, avoidant of, can avoid criticism, in my opinion. Neves, I don't think he had his greatest game in Wolfship, despite the goal. But I need to criticise Lookman and need to criticise Podence. If it's raining that much and you don't do a knee slide after you score, what are you doing as a professional footballer?
Yeah, there is an element of obligation, isn't there, to your celebration in the rain?
Yeah,
and
even Harry Maguire did it.
Yeah, I think it's poor. I think it's poor and potentially a finable offence. But I can understand not wanting to do like a belly slide because you've then got to run in a soaking wet top. But at least do a bit of a knee slide.
Well, you're gonna be wet anyway. If you're gonna, you could roll on your front and then pretend to swim.
Yes.
No half measures.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean? So at this point, you're already soaked through. You're not getting any drier. So
yeah. So I was a fan of I was a fan of Neves at least doing a knee slide, sort of incorporating into the celebration where viewers didn't, which disappointing. But anyway, throughout the first half, it seemed a pretty even affair, to be honest. Both sides were creating sort of good chances. I think Leicester aren't in great form, but they have some good players throughout that spine of the team when they're on song. And I know Tillman's had a chance, I think, even before the Neves one, and before the Leicester goal, Wolves had a really great opportunity through Nori, where I've mentioned Tielemans. I think he still kind of is probably try to work out his left from his right after that sort of Daniel Podence mesmerising act. I mean, in terms of Podence overall, he is just a player in top form in his Wolves career right now, isn't he?
He is, and I think he's playing football now that the top players and top teams have spark and have finesse and make it look effortless. And at the moment, he looks like he's just doing this for fun. Like he looks like he's playing, like he's got the ball on a string on his feet, and he's doing tricks, he's doing turns, he's doing this, he's passing, he's on point. He's just, the criticism of Jota before he left was that he was very much a purple patch player. Like he would have 4 great games and then he'd go off the boil. It seems like now we're seeing the best of Podence, but he's just getting better and getting better and getting better. And he's had, with injury, unfortunately, he'll come in for like a League Cup game and they're always shite and no one ever plays well. And then you think to yourself, actually, is he ever going to get a good run? But he's took the chance and actually rolled with it now. And you think, if he isn't one of the first names on the team sheet now, there's probably a problem, isn't there? Only an injury or some kind of bizarre tactical 7 behind the ball all times stops him being the first name on the team sheet. I'd have thought.
Yeah, and you see, he seems versatile in sort of whatever formation we play because he's so influential as well. Would you say, Jefoe?
Yeah, I think the important bit with Podence is, like you say, he's getting a sustained run in the team now, and he's kind of become that Jota replacement that we needed, because Raul works better in that too that we've seen, and having somebody to play with him and be a foil for him has only been beneficial for Podence, and pardon me, and having that ability to play with Jimenez and create this natural partnership has been fantastic, and he's starting to do what he needed to do and get goals and assists into his game.
Yeah, I hadn't kind of quite appreciated that his goal against Leicester was like his first league goal of the season. He's got a few in the cup and things like that, and he seems to be like, he's always someone who brings a lot of joy on a football pitch. But we'll also have kind of this season have a few players who do that without necessarily the output in tangible metrics in terms of goals and assists. But that seems to be coming as part of his game, and that loops back to what you were saying, Matt, that he's becoming indispensable now because he is the guy who is creating chances. He is the guy who is causing trouble for the opposition in a meaningful way. But and to be fair, it was so unlucky by Nori. It was a really, really good effort. But going down the other end of the pitch, we're coming up towards half time. I want to say almost we're carved open in a way for the Lookman goal. Do you guys see it as a really good Leicester goal, or do you see it that Wolves could have done better?
You look at where Lookman starts in the attack, because he's pretty much the one who starts that Leicester attack, and he runs through the midfield and defence. He should be picked up at some point. He shouldn't be allowed to run 30 yards and then get onto the end of essentially a cutback. But it's one of these. We've not had a chance to criticise our defenders much this season. So when we do make one mistake, it stands out like a glaring issue. But it's nothing to worry about, I wouldn't have thought.
No, it didn't feel to say like, oh, it was, calamity of errors, Keystone Cops kind of vibes. But my thing was, we play the back five, and Tielemans, don't get me wrong, one of the best midfielders in the league. I'd happily argue. Still manages to thread it through our back line, and we just kind of all getting caught a little bit flat-footed as well.
I think I counted 6 potential influences of the goal in a gold shirt, basically, that could have influenced the goal in some decision, and nobody does. And that's the worrying thing, really. It's almost as if there were too many defenders or potential people there, and nobody knew who should have gone for the ball. But to allow the player in front of you is the bigger crime here. To allow him to be goal side when there's that many people around it. But listen, second best defensive record in the league, I think it is at the moment.
Yeah.
And in the grand scheme of things, it's not that it didn't affect the outcome of the game come the end of the match. But Bruno he'll be annoyed with that. And I'm sure he'll have his words and do what he needs to. Cody will be annoyed with it, and everybody else will be. And I think the measure of it will be seeing if we make these kind of mistakes again, and I doubt we will, because we're a team that tends to, I find at the moment, we can identify a weak spot, but it does get fixed pretty quickly.
No, I agree. And from my perspective, I don't think the defence was amazing, but I think they were a bit more almost exposed by the midfield, which I've never had a standout season. Martinho has as well. And Dendoncker played well last week. That feels like a real big come down. So, 2 really good seasons and one decent 90 minutes. But, I don't think our midfield quite clicked in the same way as it did against Spurs. I don't know.
Well, I felt that we saw the absolute best and worst from Dendoncker and Sace in this game. Now, what I mean by that is, in Sace, fabulous defender. He will do the dirty work that makes Killman look so good and gives Cody the room to spray these balls around and does what he needs to do. But Christ me, when you want someone just to hold on to the ball and just to keep, he's very much a defender's defender. If he can boot it out, he will. Do you know what I mean? If he can just get a foot and get rid of it, he will. And I think we saw that he passed the ball or booted away to give it straight back to Leicester possession a couple of times in this game, and Dendoncker did the same, and it just invites pressure. And these are very, very nitpicky criticisms here, but when you're at 6th in the table, 7th in the table, these fine margins can cost you. So you've got to be your best at all times.
Well, yeah, and without sort of saying too critical, because we won everything and we've been in good form. We're our next 2 games are against Arsenal and West Ham, and that if you make mistakes like that against a slightly more informed team over the course of the season, you're more likely to get punished or not see the ball again for a while, and it shows. And to be fair, I thought Dendoncker probably had the best game out of the 3 of them personally. He dropped off when he went into a 2, but I think it almost feels sort of set in stone now. Dendoncker can play in a 3 under Large and have a good impact. Can't play in a 2.
I think of all of the bizarre partnerships on the pitch yesterday that impressed me the most was this Semedo Dendoncker click. Something just worked really well. They played off each other really well. Like I put in my tweet, after the game, Semedo sneaks in and puts one of the best performances on the pitch yet again. He just quietly goes about, does what he does. He's not like a Hollywood player, so to speak, in that, he's constantly bombing up and down and getting shots off and scoring 35-yarders. But actually, he's so composed and he's so influential to the way that we play. And I'm really glad that at least for a few months now, he's not the scapegoat player, because we have to have a scapegoat player. That's just what we like as Wolves fans. But at least it's not Semedo anymore.
No. Yeah. I'd be fascinated to sort of see his sort of defensive stats in terms of how he ranks up with other his output's really high this season, and he's getting a lot of plaudits. But to be honest, I think you take away sort of the first 3-4 months of Semedo's time at Wolves and barely put in a poor performance from last year. And last 14 months, I'd happily argue. And I'm sure we sort of said at the end of season podcast last year, like, I think you'll notice a different, like, Isan, I think you notice more when you're watching him live in a stadium, just in terms of how he kind of passes and moves and he gets up the pitch in a sort of a different way to how Matt Doherty did and stuff like that. But yeah, light and day in terms of how we've seen him.
I'd love to see, because we saw on Twitter, I think it was about a week ago, the improvements in Ait-Nouri. In defensive stats. I'd like to see the same thing with Semedo, because I feel like we'd see similar results, because the two fullbacks this year have just been light and day.
Yeah,
absolutely. Just the way they affect the game between now and last season has just been incredible.
And I don't think you could even argue, they're good going forward but poor defensively, because you rarely see Semedo get beaten, you rarely see him out of position or exposed or anything like that. I think he's been fantastic. But going into second half, we had made our kind of couple of substitutions in terms of Hwang coming on, which I think he had a really big impact on the game. And I'm a big fan of his, and it's nice to see him sort of come back and have positive influence on the game. Yeah,
I think Hwang counteracted a lot of what you were saying the issues, Matt, to be honest, with where we were giving the ball away. And I think that pressure from the front when we had the three forwards on was, it was negligible. Then, we were able to put more pressure on. We were able to hold the ball forward more. And I think Hwang did that fantastically well down the left. I thought it was important to us seeing that game out and getting the victory.
I agree. I mean, when you're a stage in the game, 65, 70 minutes in the beating down rain, and the game opens up naturally, does space is created. You need a player like him that's so aggressive, he's so dogged. That's exactly what you need at this moment in time. Someone's going to chase down every ball, but actually, once he has that ball, he can actually do something with it. I think he's I think we were sold the dream when he came in that he was going to be an out-and-out striker and a chance creator, and that would be his only part of the game. But actually, seeing him slightly deeper in on the pitch there, in a game like that, which easily could have got away from us, Leicester created more and more chances as the second half went on. It had the Leeds away air of it. In some respects, it's only a matter of time before Leicester score here. So to have him on the pitch there, to be able to kind of break up play, be aggressive, good substitution at the right time, and another example of what happens when we have a bench with options. Yeah,
because it came relatively early in the game in terms of Hwang's substitution. It was 58th minute, so it was just before the hour mark. So, and again, it was a place Martino wasn't having that impact. Don't know whether he was still carrying a bit of a knock or whatever. And I think it sort of showed in Wolves getting the winner through Daniel Podence. I mean, yet again this season, it was a combination of a great team goal and a fantastic individual goal at the same time.
Yeah, I know he deserves a lot of credit for his work in that build-up. He beat like three men before he went not back to Dendoncker.
And then Dog gets the assist.
Yeah, and then Donk just does a 5-yard pass and then just gets the assist. That's so harsh on Nuri, but yeah, fantastic team goal, like you say. And it's nice to see Danny get a goal in the league finally. That was one thing that we waited for.
Yeah, and I think in terms of, I say even before 8-0, like for work Max Killman does in terms of bringing it out from the back. I think he kind of skips past the player and then opens up the pitch. But I think it was Match of the Day sort of said, it's Podence's sort of first touch that gets him that goal.
Yeah, he opened his body up beautifully.
Yeah, just fantastic, I thought.
Yeah, it was a really special goal, sadly marred by VAR non-intervention in the end, but Schmeichel doing his absolute level best to try and get the goal ruled for offside. I think when you take off your goggles for whichever team it is you support, you can see that Jimenez is moving away from the direction of the ball anyway, and there's an angle in the highlights which kind of shows at you at the angle that Podence was taking it from, and there's clear daylight between Schmeichel and Jimenez.
You can see the whole way.
I mean, I don't blame Schmeichel, and I think if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I genuinely believe that there's an element of like gamesmanship that is to be expected, but there can't be a complaint about the goal. Yeah, they're in offside positions, but they're not interfering with the trajectory or the eyesight of the ball. So sorry, but no cigar.
No, I when I saw it, when you see it, I guess from sort of the sideways sort of camera angle, you go, hang on, you can see Jimenez is a yard off or whatever. You go, ooh, not quite sure. And then you actually see like the angle of Schmeichel / Podence, and there's that forced perspective issue of it. But you've touched on Schmeichel there, and we're chatting after the game. Is he a bit of a shithouse?
I think that's the biggest understatement of the season.
Yeah, I was going to say I wanted to go for a lot stronger word there, and I don't know why. We'll go for shithead. We'll go for no, scrap it. We'll just go for a shit because it was like this in the Euros, but I can't work out if it's just because we don't see much of him, or the goody, PR campaign that Leicester have, and everything. But bit of a twat.
It's just the way. It's every time he plays against Wolves, and every time he's at Molineux, he's exactly the same. So he's got to be like that everywhere. So you think all other fans outside of Leicester are going to think he's an absolute bellend? Yeah,
I don't think I'd quite appreciated it before. Obviously, in Euros, because I think everyone was sort of riding high off the back of that and whatever. And has football ever really come home? It's like get in the bin. Yeah, and I don't know, that's left a mark. That's left a mark for me. But it did, it didn't really matter in the end. But I don't think the apple falls far from the tree. Let's be honest with.
He kind of got the revenge on him at the end, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I would have loved it. I've seen Wolves sort of TikTok after it, but
the caption on that.
Yeah, but he deserves a pay rise for the TikTok admin at Wolves, I'm telling you. But I'd have loved Sarr to have cleared him out instead of just punching it away. Gone. If I said the proper old Matt Murray when he went up and knees up in the air, one knee up in the air, which just kind of parts the sea. I feel like he should have done that through Schmeichel, which was a bit of a shame because I think if any goalkeeper would do that in this league, it would be Sarr, because he is. To be fair, I think Cody said it in his interview earlier this week. Yeah, all good goalkeepers are a bit mental, and yeah, Sarr's a good character in the dressing room. That's a good way of putting it. But in terms of sub, the other one we kind of talked about how he was on the bench, but with the return of Neto, I mean the ovation that he got coming on, I almost felt a bit sad for Podence in a way because his performance deserved a standing ovation, but it was definitely meant for the guy coming on. But I wasn't expecting him to be that good.
No, you think with these things it's going to take a little bit of bedding in time, and the first real action of the game for him wasn't in an attacking sense. He absolutely gunned it back to track back to try and stop an attack, which was great to see. He's a player, he's an enigma, he's a special talent, and he's a special talent because the footballing world talks about Neto, not just the Wolves world. There are so many, Twitter accounts and ex-players and that are talking about the kid and just talking about him in a positive way. And could he have come back at a better time in the season with the run-in that we've now got and how important the next few games are? I've been burnt before with hope. But I've just got this feeling that it's all the pieces are falling into place, and Neto is one of those pieces.
I mean, what I love most about it, he's come back at a fantastic time because we've got every game's. I'm going down football cliches here, but every game's a bit of a cup final now, isn't it?
Mm.
And the next two really are massive because they are league position deciders in and around where Wolves are. But even if we're playing, when we play Crystal Palace, for example, that's still got big implications. Every game's got such huge implications for us. But the pressure's off Neto in a sense that we've got Trincao if we need to. We've got Hwang. We've got we've got Podence. And it's what? If one of them ain't firing.
I think that's really important now because we've got all these games that were postponed because of COVID. And we got such a quick turnaround. It's refreshing to be able to move these players around in the front line and keep it fresh. And now was a good time to try and give Jimenez a rest and try and let him recover and get some of that form back. And it's a good thing for Silva as well because it takes a little bit of pressure off him because Hwang, like you say, Hwang can play at striker. You've got all these options, so there's not. The whole world's looking on one or two players. Yeah,
there's so much more flexibility now that you're almost kind of confident if Wolves play 3-5-2 and have sort of two attacking players up front. If we go for 3-4-3, depending on Martinho's fitness, you're happy with that as well because you go, well, hang on, even if that have to be Jimenez plus one anymore, you could have a front two of Hwang and Neto. And I think we'd all kind of go, okay, be interesting, but it could work. And it's not out of this realm of possibility now that we have all these sort of different options depending on the opponents. And, it makes you giddy. But, it felt very much like for sort of the last sort of 20 minutes, we were riding the storm a bit, figuratively and literally, I guess, with the weather. But, there were parts where it was disappointing we couldn't control and manage out the game. I think we all kind of we need Wolves to get to that level where it doesn't feel as squeaky bum time.
I think it's really fun just watching Wolves defend now. It's like those three centre backs really enjoy defending, like they said on Match of the Day, and you watch all three of them. They're sprinting to get to that ball to try and block it for that Tillman shot at the end.
Yeah,
it's incredible. To have three players so passionate about what they do on the pitch, the work Lager's doing with them to keep them motivated and get them to improve and stay consistent every week is fantastic.
I mean, the record speaks for itself. From somebody that on FIFA and Football Manager is unhappy if he's got any less than 70% possession. I play so boring when I'm ahead on these games. to me, it's excruciating to watch sometimes the way that we will build. I'm absolutely fine with us attacking at 2-1. I'm not saying we've got to shut up shop or anything like that. But sometimes we'll have the ball in the defence and then we'll play an errant pass and then we'll lose possession again and invite another attack. And sometimes that kamikaze way of playing, it will bite you on your arse at some point. That being said, whilst it would appear, that Leicester were in the ascendancy, actually we maintained them really well. We didn't give them a lot of really clear-cut chances. And then once again, the probably pound for pound best signing in the Premier League this season, Sarr, did what he needed to do at the right time anyway. So, again, the pieces just fell into place very nicely.
Yeah, big player step up and big big moments. That's my sort of viewpoint on a lot of it. You see it with Neves, like he's your dude when you know stuff's happening. He's one who delivers. Sar's the same at the other end. Like he loves it. You can see he's almost waiting for that blockbuster moment. And you know, Tillman's the advert shot in the first couple of minutes, which went just wide, and you know there was a bit of pressure. I wasn't too worried because a lot of it, similar to Wolves in a way, it was outside the box. They weren't, you know, carving us open and things like that. You know, I think Maddison had one as well. But again, just a really strong save at the death. And Wolves could have made it 3-1 if it wasn't for, you know, I think Podence being a little bit short of that match fitness as he kind of had a swing from 35 yards out for an open goal. Should he have passed it though?
I think at this point, you know, the game, as soon as the possession was turned over, the ref was blowing the whistle anyway. So you see your name in lights, you go for it, to be honest.
Yeah, you got to respect it.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think from that point of view, we were already into kind of the 5th minute of 4 added on. Yeah. So, you know, at this point, you've got to go for it, to be fair. I think any of us would have. Yeah,
it does feel like the ref let it play on just to see if a goal could happen from that far out. I think if you'd have like squared it to Jimenez or whatever, or cut it back a little bit further, the ref might have blown it. It was like, could be an opportunity for an interesting goal here, but it wasn't to be. I mean, we've talked about, well, pretty much all the players, to be honest, and I've pulled up the match ratings that Gully's done for Forza Football. We've pretty much kind of covered all our sort of standout players in terms of Semedo, Podence, obviously. And I think even if you take away the goal, I think he was still fantastic. And the back line, you know, held true as well. For you guys, though, who would you be giving man of the match to? Because I think Gully, well, I'm looking at that, he's given Podence an 8.5, which is high from everyone else. Would you be giving it Podence, or is there someone else who kind of stakes a claim?
Danny really saw for me.
I think, you know, the Saw with what he did, but I think everything he did was not routine. That takes away a little bit of takes a bit of the praise off him. But Semedo did what he did without fuss, and he didn't really put a foot wrong, but he wasn't influential in the goals. Really, I think in the overall grand scheme of things, Podence is probably the one for me as well.
Yeah, I think that's I can't not concur on that one. I think it's always nice to see sort of a few players sort of stepping up and making it difficult. And the lovely side of it for me is that you've got them at opposite ends of the pitch as well. That you know, Sal's probably not got as many man of the matches this season as opposed to, let's say, Neves, just because of other players doing equally well in more glamorous positions, which is a bit of a shame. But again, just for the joy Podence brought, to be honest, you know, they're definitely well deserved. And I say not the most glamorous of games for Wolves, but great to have a victory. We're going to take a short break, guys. We're going to be back after a short ad break to talk about Ruben Vinagre, lest we forget, a bit about Arsenal. We'll be back right after this. Hi, it's Richard from Wolves Fancast here. Just interrupting today's show before we get back to some questionable opinions and opinionated questions to talk to you a little bit about our sponsors, Pixel Yeti Media. They are a design agency that put you and your business first, from web design, logo and branding design, and marketing. If you have any marketing needs, get in touch with them to find out how they can help you get it right. They are over at pixelyetimedia.com. Now let's get back to a show where we can give you some really forced wordplay, niche cultural references, and maybe even a bit of football talk. Hello and welcome back to Wolves Fancast. News that sort of broke over the weekend was around Ruben Vinagre, who currently on a season-long loan at Sporting Lisbon, looks set to sign for them permanently after a purchase clause was triggered with them qualifying for sort of the latest round of the Champions League. I mean, I think it's pretty certain he'd be moving on anyway at this point, just because of where he sits in the pecking order. was it a bit of a? What I wanted to ask is, do you feel like there's a little bit of a missed opportunity for him at Wolves, considering, I guess, the form of Johnny and then the resurgence of Ait-Nouri who then came in?
Not really. I think he had his chance. Really, I think he never took it. When he had the run in the team when Johnny got injured the first time, he didn't really take his chance. He was not consistent enough. He wasn't good enough going forward. And he made too many errors at the back. And I think the deal that we've got is an absolute steal.
Yeah.
10 million back for Vinagre, and we paid 10 million for Ait-Nouri.
Yeah,
it's daylight robbery for me. That is. I'm
pretty sure the Vinagre one has like a very big sort of sell-on percentage clause as well. I think it's like 50%, which I think Wolves quite like doing that at the moment. But I think the writing on the wall was on the summer 18 months ago now, when he had that running the side after Johnny's injury, and then we bring in Marcel and we bring in Ait-Nouri. He seemed just someone who we got in that promotion campaign. He was understudy under Barry Douglas, but he never quite progressed, I think, at the levels we all hoped he would do. Matt, are you kind of similar thoughts that he did his job at Wolves when it was needed?
I mean, in the nicest way possible, every player, bar one or two, are horses in a stable. And what I mean by that is they are assets to use at Foson's pleasure or displeasure, to be honest, because if a deal is there to be made, a deal will be made. And this is an example of the good side to Foson's ruthlessness and business model and plan. Sadly, sometimes I feel like how we play and how Lars has transformed this team is in spite of Fosun as opposed to because of Fosun. Yeah. We're doing the absolute best of a shitty hand sometimes when it comes to the kind of play that we have. But this is a great example of negotiation, and like you said, Jefoe, whoever's put the clauses in, it's an absolute spectacular bit of business at a point where nobody would want him back in the nicest way possible. Yeah. We've got the options that we wouldn't need him back. Now, Vitinha, that's another story. Someone in the midfield we potentially have dropped the ball on. However, I think Fosun, when it comes to these things, are doing, when it comes to outgoings and the way that we're actually selling players, that when we do, I think we'll look back on Traore when he gets signed permanently by Barca because of the kind of, form he I think all of a sudden we'll have all these attacking options that we won't have missed him that much. I know that sounds sacrilege to say at this point now, but then when you put 40 million, 50 million on the table in front of us, I think then you think actually it was a pretty shrewd bit of business, this.
Yeah. And, I say, you Traore link's an interesting one because, it's basically 3 weeks since he left.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hamstring injury. And if Neto can stay fit and get up to match sharpness quickly, which it appears he is, like that's like a new signing. I'm hitting all my football cliches today. But yeah, even if he came back, if Vinagre came back in the summer, he'd be arguably fourth choice at best. And the fact that we've even got Ryan Giles out on loan, who is progressing and is potentially at the point where Vinagre was when we were in the Championship anyway. Like, we might as well keep a homegrown player for the roster if we need that extra player. And I think you're right. It's just Fosun being ruthless, and it's the difference between, even the likes of Man City haven't got it right in terms of being able to get rid of a lot of players, and money's no object to them. But if it's not quite worked out for players, we haven't kept them around. We've shipped them off to Zurich, and to be fair, that Vinagre's at least wanted to a degree because he'd be out there if we really didn't like him. So yeah, I think I'm going to definitely keep half an eye on his career going forwards because I think there's a player in there, but it'll be a case of whether he just becomes sort of a middling, left back, left winger in Portugal. You can really kind of step on and fulfill that potentially shown in that first season at Wolves. The other thing I wanted to talk about before we talk about Arsenal, he's, to be honest, what a bloody good group of lads we have at Wolves. I'm basing this off Evo, but the big mark is 200th appearance with Wolves, which he did with Dave Edwards, and there's also a couple of interviews with Pedro Neto and Connor Cody, which are very fun to watch. And it just seemed like sort of a camaraderie and how much sort of they're joking and, you know, chatting about other players in the squad and highlighting things from like 4 years ago now and things like that. It just made me think that with the stick that a lot of footballers get for, I was going to say indiscretions, you know, incidents, that this seems to be a good bunch of guys who all really enjoy spending time together.
Yeah, it's refreshing.
Yeah.
More than anything, it's refreshing. It's something we've never had before. And you've mentioned a few of the things, but another one that I really enjoyed was the Guess Who with Nelson Semedo and Sace. That was just fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so light-hearted because it just humanises the players, because normally we're so disconnected from these players outside of match day and other little bits and bobs, so that, you know, we kind of get this sort of like, I don't know, like fly on the wall sort of thing. We can see them when they're relaxed and they're enjoying it and they're interacting with each other. It's nice.
Yeah, I think the club's doing a really good job at, say, highlighting them as people more than anything else. And like, don't get me wrong, their wages are astronomical. But, you know, it's silly money for any of these footballers are on, but they all seem really just regular, down to earth people. You know, even when it's things like they did when we did like the FIFA rankings, and they all did it in the room and revealed each other, and they're all having, you know, they're all having a really kind of good laugh about it. And as I don't watch a lot of the fan of fan content and whatever of other clubs and whatever, but I'd be amazed if it's like that at other places. And, you know, it's not just it doesn't feel clicky, which it couldn't, you know, it really could be with a huge number of players from one specific country. But you say you've got Semedo and Sace doing stuff together. You've got Connor Cody, you know, doing things with Pedro Neto in his second language, but, you know, speaks better English than me, frankly, Pedro Neto. Yeah, and as I say, just really heartwarming. And again, Cody had I can't remember when it came out, that video of like his Wolves career in pictures and him going into like detail about these games and that, you know. I found it fascinating. I think it was one from like the end of his first season, about one under jacket. And he said, "Oh, this is one of my favourite photos. I have this up in my house." And it's like it was the first time this kid had done the lap around Molineux, and he was one and stuff like that, and talking about how the move was, you know, their child was born, I think, sort of recently after he moved, but they didn't have much of a family network in the Midlands at that point. So he said something like, it was our opportunity to sort of find, you know, our fittest parents and in the area and everything like that. And I say, just, I don't know, like, I feel like we're just really connected to this group of players on a real personal level as well at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, to take it in a slightly different direction, slightly colder direction, maybe. What you've got to think of as well is, you know, Fosun are so hell-bent on making us an attraction for the international market.
Yeah.
That unfortunately for us, and fortunately for fans in other countries, they don't have a moral obligation to support Wolves like people that are born in Wolverhampton or have family members. So they can pick and choose which club they want to support, essentially speaking. And that's not to disparage the support of our fantastic international fan base and all of the different clubs around, you know, around the country. But when the club is pumping out this content that is on TikTok and these massive platforms, YouTube and everything else, and it's entertaining to watch, it's more eyes, and because it's humanized and they are human beings, they're not just players, unreachable, unfathomable players. It's just more eyes that get people talking and consuming Wolverhampton Wanderers. And it's really shrewd business, and I absolutely love it. I think that our social media team and the kind of content that we pump out on a regular basis as a club is spot on. It's really, really excellent, and I think it's just another reason why someone in Singapore or anywhere, that's probably a bad example because I think they have the Leicester market, don't they? But like an international fan, they'd look at that and think, actually, I think I might look into them more because they're pumping out this entertaining content.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think what you say it's entertaining because when you get stuff like that, and when you get clubs doing things like that, it just has that chance of being sterile, and it's just being done for the sake of it being done. But it's entertaining; they look like they're enjoying it, which gives you that nice balance to everything.
Yeah, and I think you're completely right that there's potentially ulterior motives into terms of perspective as well. That if you're a player, you want to be part of that group because they've never saying like with the line, it's fine when new players come in because we're all going in the same direction. If they're not, and you always see them pause because it's like if they're not, then they don't. We fuck them off basically. Which I was like, you can not mention any names, Patrick Castrone. Do you know what I mean? It's really heartwarming, and people. I genuinely think that whether it's domestic fans who are neutral or, let's say, American fans or wherever, people will follow Wolves because of someone like Connor Cody and how they interact with stuff like because, I got into American football in the last couple of years, but it was because of a certain player and I liked his personality. And I don't know. I think they've been really smart in sort of showcasing how good these people are. Hopefully, though, I've talked about how nice they are, but Wolves are on a revenge tour. Let's be honest, guys. For recent weeks, we beat Man U, we've beaten Spurs, we've beaten Leicester. The first 3 games of the season, when we lost to all 3 of those in a row, we've vanquished them. The next one we have up is Arsenal. It feels like about 4 days since we last played them, but it's actually been 40. Well, I was going to say it'll be about 14 when we actually sort of play them on Thursday night. I mean, big implications again in terms of this result. That would you go as far as saying it's a must win or must not lose?
I think it's a must not lose. I think it's a must not lose in that. It depends. It depends how big you dare to dream. And I know that Lars came out and said we don't dream, we just play kind of thing. If you're looking at 4th, which we've got every right to look at 4th, to be perfectly honest, then it's an absolutely kind of must win. If it's a secure a European place, then it's a do not lose scenario, really, because you don't want the likes of Spurs and Brighton to a certain degree gaining any traction on you. I think Arsenal, in the form that they're in and the form that Man United aren't in, are in serious contention to shoot up the table anyway. So I think it's more of a momentum thing than anything. I think it's about maintaining momentum, and then I think West Ham is must win. Because I think that they've shown that the cracks are slowly starting to appear a little bit. Whereas Arsenal is a little bit more, let's make sure just we're maintaining the momentum. Yeah,
I think my question I put in the group chat the other day is, with these next 2 games coming up in Arsenal and West Ham, would you rather win one and lose one or draw both? Now, don't get me wrong, 3 points is better than 2 points. I understand it. And there's games in hand and things of implications. But if we draw both, the status quo sort of stays the same to a degree. Whereas if we win one but lose the other, that double, I was going to say it's almost like a relegation 6-pointer, but with the Europa League 6-pointer. And
the positive outcome for winning one and losing one is if we win the West Ham game.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I think.
I think the good thing about the Arsenal game is that we're away, and our away form is just incredible. I mean, I don't know whether we're third or fourth overall form in the league away from home, but we are right up there.
Ridiculous, yeah. I think, it's so strong at the moment. I mean, Arsenal actually are in pretty good nick in the league. They're fourth in the form table as well. We're second, but they obviously beat us a couple of weeks ago. In their last 6 games, they've won 4, drawn 1, lost 1. I think the loss was to Liverpool off the top of my head as well. So
and they did not deserve to lose that game.
Yeah, and they've kind of quietly started to grind out results. I guess my question is, do you think we'll have learned our lessons from 2 weeks ago?
It's a tough one because I think because of the amount of time and the amount of opportunity we had then when it was against 10 men to try and penetrate, it wasn't as if it's a hard one. I think now that we've got a few more attacking options, we can roll the dice and do something a little differently. I'd like to think that we're able to have a few more clear-cut chances against them, which, for all intents and purposes, we were a little stale and didn't make the most of our advantageous position of having the extra man, did we? So I'd like to think that we will offer more going forwards in this game, because Arsenal is still Arsenal. They still have an absolute calamity in them.
Yeah. If I remember rightly, that Arsenal game was the one where Hwang was back on the bench, but he had the back spasm.
Yeah.
And I think he would have been much better to bring off the bench than Fabio Silva when we were pushing and we'd got Raul and Fabio on. I just think like we were saying earlier, he's got a bit more grit. He's got something about him. I think we might have got that goal and we might have equalised in that game. I think, like you say, now we've got options. We could create more. We can, offer something different in the game.
I was going to say, now, one of the problems we had against Arsenal a couple of weeks ago was we lost that midfield battle. I think it was one of the games that Matinho was out for, and Donk struggled in the middle. I mean, assuming Matinho's fit, I'm guessing he will be, or he's in slightly higher match fitness. Do you play a midfield 3 of Matinho, Neves, Dendoncker, because it gives us more numbers in the midfield, and having that bit of physical presence from Dendoncker is quite good against someone like Xhaka. Matinho and Neves, can bite at the heels of the likes of Odegaard. Or, knowing that we're in good nick and we've got a few more attacking options, do we kind of go a little bit brave and go for a 3 up front, and maybe you start Hwang or Neto alongside Podence and Jimenez?
It's hard, isn't it? I just don't want us to see us concede the first goal and then be in exactly the same position that we're in, where we're trying to then batten, and then Arsenal are batten down the hatches and just do what they did to us again. I probably prefer that midfield stability and then let Aït-Nouri and let Semedo do what they do and create from the wings, as opposed to us creating, through the middle. I guess the elephant in the room is what do you do about Jimenez now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a question might have had a question from Twitter Corner, similar to that. It's like, do we need to have a bit more of a conversation about him? Whether it's sort of now in the summer, and it's again, it goes back to what I was almost suggesting earlier. You could go for a 3-5-2, keep that solid base in the midfield, and maybe start Podence and Neto, or Podence and Hwang.
Yeah, I think Podence and Hwang could be a good combo.
Yeah. And you bring Jimenez on after 60 minutes, and see if that likes to fire in the belly sort of vibes. It's really tricky, but that's a good thing because we've got options, so isn't it? I think Bruno's shown a couple of times now he's not afraid to be ruthless. If he doesn't think someone's doing it quite right, he will pull them out. And pardon me, the fact we've got options, That's I think it's going to be a really interesting game. I think it's going to have a nice bit of spice to it as well.
I think we'll be well up for it.
Yeah, and I feel like, do you remember when we played them, or back in the heady lockdown days, when it was like, actually, if we have beaten them, we'd have potentially qualified for Europe, and we just didn't show up that day.
Yeah,
it feels like it doesn't feel at the moment, time of recording on Monday night, at least this game, will be really up for Thursday's game. It will be whether we can be really up for Thursday and Sunday. Yeah,
that's where the squad comes in again.
Yeah,
we got everyone's going to be pushing each other there because everyone's going to want to play. Neto's going to want to be playing games, starting games eventually. Hwang will want to be playing, starting. Podence, Jimenez, Silva, even on the outskirts. So this competition within the squad now, to who's actually going to play and who's going to get minutes, is just going to drive everyone forward, or at least that's what we hope.
Yeah. Let's round off the section by doing some score predictions then, Matt.
I think realistically, a 1-1 draw would be where I think the game will go. That's where my head says. I'd love to say that we can come away with a win, but I would probably be delighted with a draw, if I'm completely honest.
Jefoe, how about you, mate?
I might just stick my neck out and say 2-0 win.
See, I'd take a draw at the moment. I really would, but I'm going to go 2-1 Wolves. I think it might be a bit squeaky bum. So I think we'll get a 2-0 lead and then concede one. It'll be, a bit high behind the curtains vibes, but we'll have to wait and see. But right, shall we round off the show for with some lovely questions, because we've got a few this week. Right, this one's a double header of a question. It's from Fancast boys, from Gully and Stu. So first off is, what's the standard protocol when someone spills your own drink on somebody else? So it's your pint and you've knocked it over somebody else. Now, if you knocked over someone else's pint, you buy from a replacement. What do you do if it's your own pint?
I think you're buying 2 pints, aren't you? One for you, one for them.
That sounds fair.
It's a difficult one, that, really. I suppose you apologise profusely, and I suppose you say, let me get you a drink. Maybe I suppose it's when you've got that heavy-handed and you spill a drink on the table, then the person directly opposite you, then it's the race against time for them to jump out of the way before the impending pint drips onto their lap. That moment in time is one of the scariest kind of few seconds you can experience in an adult life, really.
Yeah, I mean, the follow-up question from Stu, and it was, is it ever okay to wear 2 pairs of trousers for no reason at all? The reason could be because it was quite cold outside, I'd argue. The background to all this, by the way, was we went out for a meal last night, a few of the guys from the Fancast. Stu managed to quite emphatically tip half his pint onto Gully's lap. Who was wearing a lovely pair of light blue trousers, if I can remember correctly. And so, sorry. I mean, Gully's pint was literally still full, and Stu had already necked half of his anyway. So the other half went on Gully. And Gully was a bit annoyed because it looked like he pissed himself, but then went, well, to be fair, I'll take them off, and I've got a pair of joggers on underneath.
Oh, well, that's different. I mean, that's just a thicker long john or base layer, isn't it? So that's not too bad. I mean,
it's not like he wasn't double deniming it.
If you're double deniming, one under the other, but like joggers under jeans is fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a cacophony for bacterial infection down there if you've got an open wound to bring the tone down. But it's a sweaty mess down there if you're going to be wearing two thermal layers like that. But there's nothing wrong with that. The way Stu made it out, I thought we were talking like 1 pair of Levi's, 1 pair of Wranglers.
No, it was it was like just a black pair of say sort of joggers to kind of, I guess, keep Gully warm.
Coming from Stu after his baseball fake long sleeve things he had on.
Yes, I was going to say, are we really surprised that Stu had an interesting sartorial choice, which was you might have seen. He sometimes, I think he's worn them doing fancast recordings before. He's worn a Wolves top and it looks like he's wearing like a base layer underneath. And we always take the piss out because it looks like he's about to come on as a sub. And he's like he's wearing like Under Armour in his own house. It's like, okay. And he was wearing it on Sunday night. And I can't remember what happened. I think we sort of joked about, you look like you're about to play. And he went, all right, and just lifted up his shoulder and peeled it off. And we're like, what is this voodoo magic?
It's like Jeff Hardy's armband things that he wears, or it was like I'd never seen anything quite like it. Everybody was just
stunned. I mean, what? It turns out they are basketball sort of arm sleeves. But the reason he gave to why he couldn't just wear like a normal long sleeve thermal was because his chest would then get too warm. His words, obviously, you know me. I was like, Stu, I know so much about you, but also so little at the same time. But yeah, so I feel like if we're going off Stu for sartorial advice, and he takes a piss out of me often enough, we've taken a bad turn. But right, next question, guys. So this one's actually from Instagram. What do you make of Chelsea scouts at the game for Max Killman, and do you think he'll stay?
They can fuck off.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, from what I understand, he's a Chelsea fan at heart. It's an interesting one. Don't get me wrong. This is the price you pay for having a talent that's as good as playing as well as he is. You're always going to have this, but I would like to think that Wolves now will have the sense to offer him a new deal that is in more keeping with his importance to us as a team. Then we will know soon enough. They probably already have. We mere mortals do not understand the goings on behind the closed doors of Waterloo Road. Do you know what I mean? So we'll know soon enough whether we have to then make alternative arrangements. And that's one thing that I don't worry about when it comes to Fosun is I think they've got a handle on kind of player contracts and things like that pretty well.
Yeah.
I think I'd be more concerned in the summer if Rudiger left Chelsea.
Well, they've got Rudiger and Christiansen, who are both out of contract, which I think is, I'm personally of the opinion, like, don't Chelsea probably have a scout at like every game?
Yeah,
probably.
Like, I don't know. Part of me thinks it's just like 2 and 2 equaling 4 because they won't go in for probably Connor Cody. They won't go in for Sace. They'd go in for the young English player.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think time will tell. I reckon if he signs another sort of contract extension with someone, because I think he signed one last year, didn't he? Sort of like this. I'm sure it was like this time last year, and we were sort of saying, well, you know what? It secures his future. It gives us a good sell on, one. And if he goes sort of top end championship, we'll get a good fee for him because we signed him for nothing, really. But yeah, I think time's going to tell on that when you say so. I think it's going to be very dependent on the Chelsea, as you said, Jefoe, like the Chelsea contract situations who they don't have a handle on if they've got two, players who are running out.
I think if they get him on a new contract, so they can put him in the Ben White sort of band of valuation.
Yeah,
because for me, he's just as important to us as Ben White would be to Arsenal. So he should be on the same valuation. No,
I agree, and I think the only thing sort of that's probably holding Killman back is that he's been in a ridiculous vein of form since the summer, but that's not. How do I say this politely without criticising when I'm not meant to? You could argue, is he just in really good form? and he's sort of just riding momentum, or is he just or is he a quality player? Now, I personally think it's the latter. He's quality. Whether a club/agent would be sort of slightly reticent about all in a longer term deal, big wages, off the back of 8 months or 6 months or whatever, I think that's still be decided. I think if you get through this summer and he gets it, then whatever. But I think time will tell. Right, next up, again, we sort of another young English player from Bradders asked, after a very good showing in the Championship again this weekend, and given the season he's having overall, is Morgan Gibbs-White worth having in the squad next season, or do you think we should cash in on him while his stock's high?
Immediately for cash in. I think his day's gone. Although he's never really been given a proper chance in the team in his right position, he's always been played out wide, or he's been played out of position in terms of he's too deep. I just think maybe the boat has sailed, but we've seen stranger things with the way Liga's done things, so we don't know.
Matt, how about you?
I just think that if he had absolutely zero Wolves connections, people would be like, what about that lad Morgan Gibbs-White at Sheffield United? He'd be a great one for us to get in, English player to help with the quota, attacking. He'd be the kind of player that you would want in your squad. So is the grass, is it better the devil you know than the devil you don't? Is he a player that you would know could slot back in? He already knows a good proportion of the squad, so there wouldn't be any kind of integration issues you'd like to think. I think he's got one more run in our team to be able to say, right, you've got your experience now. You've got a long run of match first team starts, and this is your last chance saloon if you want to solidify yourself with this club. Take your chance. And if you don't take your chance, we will sell you one because there will be suitors. I don't think it's the last time we'll see him in a Wolves shirt, put it that way. And I hope it isn't.
I think that's fair, Matt. I think that's fair.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it, because I think, it's stock's high enough that either a team potentially has just got relegated, basically next season a team is competing for top 6 in the Championship, or going for him. It's just where he sees himself slotting in at Wolves. Now, if first team football's the number one priority for him, then I think he has to make that decision for his career to go. But actually, if he's confident enough in his ability at Wolves that, I think I could play in that midfield 3, let's say, and with Moutinho getting on, not signed a new contract as yet, could I be the third choice midfielder and get a decent amount of minutes? Then maybe, because I don't see him playing in that front line of players in terms of just squad depth at the moment, because he's not getting in above Podence, he's not getting in above Neto, arguably. Hwang, we've just signed, I don't see him getting above him. Trincao, or you're going relatively far down the roster, so time will tell. I think, give him. It depends what he wants, doesn't it? If he wants first team football, then go, mate. I wouldn't hold any grudges on him for that. Next up, again another sort of what might happen. Everyone is rightly happy that Johnny's back, but where does he fit in? Asks Ash Dolan. With Ryan excelling in his role, it would be harsh to drop him. Marcel still in the picture. Where and when do we see him actually featuring?
I was having a little chat about this on the way to the ground yesterday with someone, and I think he could do what Foley did at the end of his career at Wolves, and I think he could fit in at centre mid. I think he could be a midfield option because he's got good fundamentals with his passing. He pushes well forward with the ball. He scored a fair amount of goals, and he reads the game really well. And I think he could be a option just to be a utility player. So right back, left back, and centre mid. Sorry, not centre back.
I was going to say, I think in Bruno's interview about him, Johnny claimed he could play all across the back five as well. So it might be a case of if someone like Sace has to pull out the side. But Matt, how about you? Do you see him getting much game time this season?
I don't see him getting much game time this season, and that's not a slight on Johnny. I think it's actually will be a really important thing for Lage in terms of man management and keeping the harmony in his squad because, you know, Totti Gomez and Kundal aside, Totti Gomez with a couple of performances, Kundal with one. You've got to play form players and keep them in the squad, and it would be very unfair to take Aït-Nouri out at this point now. I think it doesn't give it doesn't set a good example to take a player off who's in good form and punish them essentially, bringing somebody else back when somebody else is performing, you know, exceeding what we probably expected them to do. I think, you know, let's use Johnny where we need him. If he is as versatile as we think he is or is expected, then yeah, I think for squad harmony and morale and everything else, while we're riding high at the moment, you have to kind of reward the players that are getting you in this position. And I think it would be a mistake to take Aït-Nouri out at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think the irony of the only thing I can think of is, Aït-Nouri doesn't quite seem to have the full legs for 90 minutes every week, and it will be just a case of whether it's Marcel who comes on, which seems to be the typical one at the moment for like the last 10 minutes, or to shore things up, or to have that respite, or whether he gives Johnny that chance. It's difficult, and I think again a question might have to be asked in the summer if we're not careful. But again, it's going to be dependent what I think Johnny wants and what the club want in terms of how he's going forwards.
Neither Johnny or Marcel are the future in that position, though.
No.
So yeah, you've got to, Then again, I've never seen unbridled pace like Marcel on. I never knew he had it in him. There was one picture he absolutely sprinted from one end of the pitch to the other, and I'm like, what on earth is going on here? Like he's going to do himself a mischief.
I was going to say, even though he came on the sub, I can't remember who was saying. It's never too late for him to sort of try and get in the book, though, because the first thing he did when he came on was give away a foul. It's like the one thing you're brought on for is to be that experienced, level head, and see out the game, not just to give a bloody foul away. Right, last two questions. The penultimate one, is from Lee. Celebrations, hero, or quality street?
Celebrations for me.
Quality straight, purple one.
I think I was going between celebrations and heroes. I think I'm going to go celebrations. They're all solid. I think I think celebrations. If I had a choice, or you don't really actually get a choice, to be honest, do you? Is it that you don't?
No one buys them for themselves, do they?
Yeah, yeah.
So...
I've never bought. I've never bought celebrations just for me, but yeah, you're right. You get given them as gifts, but I reckon I'd be most happy if I got given some celebrations. Last but not least, and Matt, I'm going to allow you to do a shameless plug here.
Okay.
If I bring up the right question, is from Craig, and it's what upcoming movie are you looking forward to watching?
So on Cage Fighting Pod, at Cage Fighting Pod on Twitter, we talked about the dropping of the new Elvis trailer, which has got Tom Hanks in it. It's Baz Luhrmann who did Romeo and Juliet, the one with Leonardo DiCaprio in. So stylistically, it's going to be amazing. And as a closet Elvis Presley fan, I'm very, very much looking forward to this. It looks stylistically, it looks really, really fun. So the Elvis film, I'm really looking forward to.
Okay. Jefoe, anything?
Mine's going to be left field. I'm really looking forward to the new Dragon Ball Z film, Dragon Ball Super film, and the potential of an Attack on Titan film as well, just to round off the last arc.
Okay. Just about. I'm going to go incredibly mainstream and save a new Batman film.
Oh well, yeah,
it looks good.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for it. The trailers look gritty. I think it's going to be a different take. You know, we've been, I think, a generation to a degree, or like an era of people of Batman films have obviously grown up with the Dark Knight ones, where, you know, we all remember the Dark Knight film, which, you know, actually Batman's not the protagonist in it; it's the Joker and things like that. We're going to go down a film conversation here, aren't we? And I'm just going to have to be on cage fighting if I'm not careful again. But you know, I feel like, you know, when you had like Ben Affleck, we all compared him to you know, to previous incarnations, and I think this is a really different vibe to kind of anything that's come before in a film sense. When you look at the comics and the graphic novels, you know, it lines up a little bit more. I think it's going to be a really interesting watch, especially when you consider like the Joker movie and how well they did that in terms of a different portrayal of that universe.
It's going to be, it's something, obviously it's going to be massive and everyone's going to be talking about it, but I think it's just going to be a film that is absolute blockbuster. And sometimes we just need that. You need sometimes to just sit back and accept something as grand as this film we're going to be. It doesn't always have to be indie darling films. It is okay to enjoy this, unless it's the Fast and Furious, in which I won't.
Oh yeah, I was going to say we've talked about this before. I've never not been Fast and Furious bloke, to be honest. But hey ho, well, that's a lovely place to round off the show. Big thank you to everyone who's listened. We'll be back after the Arsenal game to review that and preview the Leicester game as well. Big shout out to 90 Min. And also to our sponsors, Pixel Yeti Media. Make sure you go check them out at pixelyetimedia.com. Keep up to date with all things Wolves Fancast and everything Wolves related on our socials, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And it's at Wolves Fancast on all of them. Just make everything lovely and simple. Until next time, it's goodbye from Jefoe.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Matt.
Take it easy, everyone.
And it's goodbye from me. See you next time.